I caught my wife texting another man, "Is my marriage over?" It all started with a gut feeling. You know that gnawing sensation deep in your chest that something isn't quite right? Well, I'd been living with that for weeks before I finally decided to act. My name's Jason 35M, and for the past 8 years, I've been married to Lily 32F. We have 2 kids, a nice home, and what I thought was a solid marriage. But recently, things felt off. Lily had been distant, more guarded than usual, and always glued to her phone. The late-night text notifications, the sudden need to leave the room to take a call, and the odd glances she gave me when I walked into the room, it all added up to one terrifying conclusion. And then, last week, I confirmed my worst fear. I walked into the living room one evening, pretending I had forgotten my phone on the coffee table. Lily was on the couch, curled up under a blanket, typing furiously on her phone. She quickly turned the screen away when she noticed me enter. My heart sank. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but deep down, I knew what was going on. It wasn't just her texting a friend or scrolling through social media. Something felt wrong. I brushed it off that night, telling myself I was paranoid. But over the next few days, Lily's strange behavior continued. She'd be on her phone late at night after thinking I'd fallen asleep. Sometimes, she'd get these sudden calls she had to take outside, saying it was just work. It wasn't work. I wasn't stupid. And then, one night, I saw a message notification light up on her phone. Just for a second, I didn't mean to pry, but the name caught my eye: Josh. I didn't know any Josh in Lily's life. I knew all her friends, her colleagues, and her family. This Josh was new. The text preview read, "Can't wait to see you again." My stomach twisted into knots. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut, and I hadn't even opened the message yet. I stood there frozen for what felt like hours but was probably just seconds. My brain went into overdrive, a million questions racing through my head. Who was Josh? How long had they been talking? Was this emotional, or was it physical? Was my marriage over? I knew I needed answers, and fast. The next day, Lily left for work early, and I seized the opportunity. I didn't want to be the kind of guy who snoops through his wife's phone, but at this point, I felt like I had no choice. I had to know the truth. So, with my heart pounding in my chest, I unlocked her phone. To my relief, she hadn't changed her passcode. The first thing I did was search for Josh in her contacts. He was saved under the name Josh W., and the message thread between them was lengthy. I scrolled back as far as I could, trying to piece together when this all began. It looked like it had been going on for at least 3 months. 3 months of lies, deception, and betrayal. The text started off innocent enough: work-related banter, jokes, casual chats. But as I kept scrolling, the messages took a more flirty tone. I read things like, "I had a great time the other night. Can't wait for round 2. I've missed your smile. You always know how to make my day better. Maybe next time we can spend the whole night together." My heart shattered with every word. It wasn't just texting. This was something deeper. Lily and Josh had been meeting up, spending time together. She was emotionally and possibly physically involved with this guy, and I had been completely in the dark. I felt like a fool. How could I not have seen this coming? I kept reading, and one message hit me like a ton of bricks. "I wish Jason would understand me the way you do." There it was. Not only was she cheating, but she was also comparing me to him, finding solace in Josh that she didn't seem to find in me anymore. I couldn't breathe. My entire world felt like it was crumbling around me, and I had no idea what to do next. Was my marriage already over, or was there still a chance to save it? After reading those messages, I felt numb. I didn't know whether to confront Lily right away or take some time to cool off. But one thing was clear: this couldn't continue. I deserved answers, and I deserved honesty. No matter how painful that conversation would be, it was necessary. I spent the next few days in a fog. Every time Lily came near me, I felt sick. How was I supposed to act normal when I knew she was hiding something so huge from me? When I saw her on her phone, I couldn't help but wonder if she was texting Josh at that very moment. I found myself second-guessing everything: every laugh, every smile, every word that came out of her mouth. It was as if our entire relationship had become one big lie. Finally, after a sleepless night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her. There was no use in dragging it out. If she was done with our marriage, I needed to know so I could start picking up the pieces of my life. If there was any hope of saving us, we needed to address it right away. I waited until we were both home that evening. The kids were already in bed, and it was just the two of us sitting in the living room. I turned to her, trying to keep my voice steady even though my heart was racing. "Lily, we need to talk." She looked up from her phone, surprised by my tone. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath. "I know about Josh." Her face paled instantly. She didn't try to deny it or play dumb. Instead, she just stared at me in shock, as if the walls of the carefully constructed life she'd been living were suddenly collapsing around her. How did you?" "I saw the messages," I interrupted. "I know everything." Lily's eyes filled with tears, and for a second, I thought she might try to explain it away. But instead, she sighed and slumped back into the couch. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never wanted to hurt you. Those words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Then why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why would you do this? How long has this been going on? She wiped at her eyes, struggling to find the right words. It wasn't supposed to turn into this, she began. At first, it was just texting. I didn't think it was serious, but then, I don't know, I just started feeling more and more disconnected from us, from our marriage, and Josh. He was there, he listened, he made me feel like I mattered. So you slept with him? I asked bluntly, my voice cold. Lily hesitated for a moment before nodding. Once, but it was a mistake. I regret it every day. A wave of nausea hit me as her words sunk in. My wife, the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, had been unfaithful, and even though she claimed to regret it, I couldn't help but wonder if that was just guilt talking. How could I trust her again after this? Do you love him? I asked, afraid of the answer. No, she replied quickly. I don't. It was never about love with Josh. It was about escaping the problems we've been having. I felt my blood boiling, and you thought cheating on me was the solution. Why didn't you come to me if you were unhappy? Why didn't you talk to me? Lily broke down in tears. I don't know. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. And I didn't want to face the problems in our marriage. It was easier to just run away from them. Her words stung. But they also gave me a sliver of understanding. Maybe our marriage had been in trouble for longer than I realized. Maybe I had been so focused on work, on the kids, on life in general, that I hadn't noticed her slipping away. But none of that justified what she had done. None of that made her betrayal any less painful. I don't know if I can forgive you, Lily, I said, my voice shaking. I don't know if we can fix this. She looked at me, desperation in her eyes. Please, Jason, I know I've made a terrible mistake, but I want to fix this. I want to fix us. I saw the fear in her eyes, the fear of losing me, of losing our family, and as angry and betrayed as I felt, a part of me still loved her. The idea of ripping our family apart was unbearable. I couldn't make a decision on the spot. It was too much to process. I need time. I said finally, I don't know what the next step is, but I need space to figure that out. Lily nodded, tears still streaming down her face. I understand. Take as much time as you need. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm so sorry. I didn't respond. I grabbed my jacket and walked out the door, needing to clear my head. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to get away from the suffocating feeling of betrayal. I drove aimlessly for hours, replaying everything in my mind. How had it come to this? How had I missed the signs? Part of me blamed Lily, but part of me also blamed myself. Had I been too caught up in work, too focused on providing financially, that I'd neglected the emotional side of our relationship? Had I taken her for granted? But then again, no matter how distant we might have been, there were other ways to fix a marriage than turning to someone else. She could have talked to me. We could have worked through it together. Instead, she'd gone behind my back and sought comfort from Josh. That betrayal cut deep. I ended up at a nearby park, sitting on a bench, for what felt like hours. I didn't know what the right thing to do was. Should I fight for our marriage or cut my losses and walk away? The days that followed were a blur. I barely spoke to Lily, only exchanging the necessary words about the kids or household chores. We were like strangers living under the same roof. I moved into the guest room and kept my distance, trying to sort through my thoughts. Lily kept apologizing, kept trying to reach out, but I wasn't ready to talk yet. I needed clarity before I could even think about where to go from here. One evening, about a week after our confrontation, I confided in my best friend, Larry. He had been through a rough patch in his marriage a couple of years ago, though it wasn't due to infidelity. Still, I figured he might have some insight. Man, that's tough, Larry said after I finished telling him everything. I can't even imagine what you're going through. I just don't know what to do. I admitted, part of me wants to fight for our family, but another part of me feels like I'll never be able to trust her again. Larry thought for a moment before responding. Trust is a tricky thing. Once it's broken, it takes a lot of time and effort to rebuild. But it's possible, if both people are willing to put in the work. Do you think I should try? I asked, unsure if I even wanted to hear the answer. I think you need to ask yourself if you can see a future without her, Larry said. If the thought of her not being in your life is worse than the pain you're feeling right now, then maybe it's worth trying to fix things. But if you think you'll never be able to move past this, then maybe it's time to walk away. His words hit me hard. Could I imagine my life without Lily? Could I picture co-parenting, dividing holidays, and watching our kids grow up from two separate homes? The idea made me feel sick, but at the same time, could I ever really forgive her for what she'd done? The answer wasn't clear. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I knew I had to make a decision soon. This limbo we were living in wasn't sustainable. The longer we dragged it out, the more damage it would do to us and to our kids. A few days later, Lily approached me again. I could tell she was nervous, but there was also a quiet determination in her eyes. Jason, she said softly, I know you're still hurting, and I know you're not ready to forgive me. but I want you to know that I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to fix this. I've already reached out to a marriage counselor, and I'm willing to go alone if you're not ready. I just want to make this right. Her words hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't just apologizing, she was actively trying to make amends. Even if I wasn't ready to join her in that process yet, it made me realize that maybe there was still a chance for us. Maybe, despite everything, we could rebuild what we'd lost. But it wouldn't be easy. Trust would have to be earned back, and it would take a long time for the wounds to heal. I didn't know if we'd ever get back to the way things were before, but if there was even a sliver of hope, I had to try. I'll go with you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, to the counseling, but I'm not making any promises. Lily, I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you, but I'm willing to try, for the sake of our family. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of relief. Thank you, she whispered. That's all I'm asking, for a chance. We started counseling the following week. It was hard, excruciating even, to sit in that room and lay bare all the hurt and betrayal. Lily owned up to everything: her emotional affair, the one night she'd spent with Josh, the reasons she'd felt disconnected from our marriage. I listened, trying to process it all without letting my anger consume me. The counselor guided us through each session, helping us communicate more openly, helping me express my pain, and helping Lily understand the depth of her betrayal. It was a long process, and there were days when I felt like giving up, days when the hurt felt too raw to keep going. But there were also small glimmers of hope, moments where I saw the woman I fell in love with again, moments where we laughed, talked about our future, and for the first time in a long time, felt like we were on the same team. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight, and it still isn't fully restored, but we're making progress. Every day, Lily proves to me that she's committed to us, to our family, and slowly, I'm starting to believe that we might actually come out of this stronger than before. Our marriage is far from perfect, but we're both willing to put in the work. Whether or not we'll fully recover from this remains to be seen. But for now, we're fighting for each other, and that's more than I could have asked for when this all began. If you've ever been in a situation like this, I know how painful it can be. Betrayal shakes the very foundation of a relationship, and rebuilding trust is a long, difficult journey. But sometimes, with enough commitment and communication, it's possible to come out the other side. I don't know what the future holds for me and Lily, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I've learned that marriage isn't always easy, and love isn't always enough to keep things afloat. But with enough effort, understanding, and forgiveness, it's possible to rebuild something stronger than before. Is my marriage over? I don't think so, at least, not yet. Let me know your thoughts, and feel free to share your advice in the comments.